Alright, peace and greetings, YouTubers. Quick disclaimer, I am sick like a dog and I feel terrible. So I pray that you pray my strength as I make this video. Alright, so I've decided to start a new series on my channel entitled The Race Files. And our first topic is going to be about black on black crime. So let me just jump right into it. Whenever there's a situation like a Michael Brown or a Jordan Davis or an Oscar Grant or Trayvon Martin, I'm usually the type of person to go on Twitter and go on these long rants about how horrible society is, and I just hope when I have kids they won't have to deal with no BS and get killed for just waking up in their own skin, and I should run for president but I'm too radical and they'd assassinate me an hour into the job anyway, and so on and so on. And while I'm doing my rant about how horrible the situation is with Mike Brown, I start getting all these different comments in my mentions, and it keeps revolving around this same subject matter, and it goes along the lines of, oh, it's always the end of the world when somebody white kills somebody black. But you don't say anything about black on black crime. And what about all the violence in Chicago and Chirac? And you need to focus on what's happening in your own community because we're killing up each other every day. And you're so worried about what the white man has done to you and blah, 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 blah. And you're distracted. And I'm like, yeah, right. Right, I'm asleep. So instead of me trying to do this long dissertation, via Twitter, 140 characters or less, I said I'd just make a video. So let's just jump right into it. When it comes to black on black crime is not a real thing. Black on black crime does not actually exist. In reality, black on black crime is a socially constructed phenomenon created by the media and accepted by the masses to help perpetuate the idea that people of African descent living in America, also known as blacks or African Americans or whatever you would like to call us in 2014, are a group of people who are very unruly, who have no morale, who are violent, who kill each other at astonishingly high rates. So high that we have to create a phrase and a term entitled black on black crime to describe it, because it's something that only affects black people and no one else has these high, crazy crime rates against each other or against themselves. And in reality, that is far from the truth. So let's break that down. When we talk about intraracial crime, meaning crime within the same racial group, the percentages of it happening, no matter what your race are usually about at the same percentage and within the same 10% range. So when we talk about white victims, being victims of white aggressors, that usually happens at a percentage of about 85 to 86%. When we talk about black victims being the victims of black aggressors, that happens at a percentage of about 93 to 94%. However, we have to remember that those numbers are a little skewed because things are a little bit different. You have to remember that crime involving black people are reported at higher rates. Blacks are often convicted and incarcerated at higher percentages than whites for the exact same crime. You also have to remember that there's also going to be a heavy police presence in basically non-affluent areas where there are high brown and black populations, meaning the police are most likely going to arrest somebody for doing something they shouldn't be doing because the police presence is already there. I'm sure if we had the same police presence in areas where there were, a smaller population of brown and black residents and more white residents, that percentage would balance out. So in my head, I think the range is further from 10% and maybe closer to 5 or 6. I can't say that that's the actual numbers because I don't have the facts and I didn't do the research, and I'm not the law of the land. But just putting 2 and 2 together, I believe, because this is my thing here, because it's here, because it's mine and I said it. I believe it's closer to 5 or 6%. So that's my 2 cents on this whole black on black crime thing, and this was my beef. I recognize and I understand that there's an issue in the black community with, the high violence. It's a huge issue, but it's an issue in every community. And when we talk about crime, no matter what your race is, you're most likely going to be the victim of a crime by somebody in your own racial demographic. And the reason is because most likely you're in a relationship with that person, you live with that person lives in your area, you work with that person is in your social circle. When we talk about how America is built up, most people usually tend to stick with people of their same racial background. Not because they're racist, not because they want to be separatists, but because culturally they mesh better with people of their same racial buildups, all right? And it just stems and deals with how America is built and set up. You most likely are going to run with people of your same racial background. Of course you run with all types of races and everything, but I guarantee you that the majority of your circle looks like you. And that's why when we talk about crime, people often are victims of crime by people of their same race, because most times you know who the person is who committed that crime against you. So I don't like the idea of people always bringing up black on black crime because it's not something that really exists. What it is, society has accepted this ideology that black people are a violent group of people. It's been sensationalized in our media. It's been sensationalized in hip-hop culture. You know, there's even phrases for us, you know, thugs, gangbangers. You go on my Trayvon Martin video right now, every comment, oh, he was a thug. And I'm like, okay, right, yeah, okay, cool, awesome. But you know, there's terminologies and phrases for us, and there's so many different things that almost makes it so we're not human. So even when there is an issue, when there's a crime or a white on black crime that has a racial overtone to it, a lot of times the black victim is dehumanized. We're put in a position where people don't feel sorry for us because they've accepted all of the things that the media and that entertainment has put before us and presented us as, you know, these violent people. So it's something that's very sad. And then one thing I want to get clear to people is, you know, black people, we are not a group of people that are any more violent than any other group of people. Okay? When we talk about crime, people really believe that black people just have this complex where we're just violent and we just kill each other at these astonishingly high rates. But in reality, when we talk about crime, crime is the result of a trigger. People just don't wake up with crime in their heart. You know, there's some crazy people that just do a bunch of crazy things, but in reality, crime is a trigger to something bigger. So if you are somebody in my demographic, let's say, you know, you're a black person like me living in some random part of the world or in America, think about all the triggers that most likely are going to affect you as a black person. One, you have to deal with the after effects of slavery that still affect us today in 2014. The after effects of Jim Crow that still affect us in 2014. Black oppression that still affects us in 2014. The crappy school systems that we have, especially in inner city neighborhoods, all right? The lack of fair housing, the lack of good jobs in these non-affluent areas where a large percentage of us live. You know, the infiltration of drugs in our neighborhood, the food deserts that many of us live in. All of those are building blocks to create an environment of crime. And because that's sensationalized in the media, and the media loves to exploit that, you often hear about crime in the inner city. You often hear about crime in Chicago all the time. And because you see it so much, you start to believe that black people are so violent that we just kill each other because we're just uncivil and it's a war zone no matter where we live. In any neighborhood that we ever go into, it's so terrible. That's why whenever we talk about something like, you know, gentrification, it's like there's no way to solve crime in a neighborhood. The only way you can make a neighborhood better is if you move a bunch of white people in it because they know how to act and they know how to behave and they know how to have nice things because you black people don't. And that's literally the mindset that people have. Going a little bit further, I think one of the reasons why we often hear about black on black crime is because you don't hear about white on white crime. And that's because in America, it's not socially acceptable to believe that white people are violent. It's not, but culturally it's acceptable to believe that black people are. You know, think about it. You don't hear about too many cases of people saying, well, what about all the white on white crime? Because, you know, the percentages are about the same. You know, of the 16,000 gun murders every year, the balance, the percentages are about the same no matter what the race is. But it's not culturally accepted to believe that white people are just as violent as every other group of people in America. Because we've been taught that Americans, we are well, when I'm speaking of Americans, I'm speaking as a white person. You know, Americans or white Americans are the bread of life in America, all is well. And, you know, even though the history books say otherwise, as far as, you know, America's done a lot of really horrible things to other groups of people. But we have accepted that it's not socially acceptable to believe that white people are violent. Okay? So, and then on top of that, you know, there's not a lot of violent stereotypes on white people like there are on blacks. Like, even like, I don't know if you remember that Good Times episode where Michael was going to have the roommate that was the white girl. And her parents were so excited that Michael was going to be the roommate because he was going to protect them. And, you know, they were so excited to come visit. Dang, I forgot their last name. What's the last name? Whatever their last names were. But they were so excited to come there. And, you know, we've never been to a real ghetto. You know, we almost thought we saw two gangbangers. You know, because it's been sensationalized to believe that black people, it's to the point where we're not even human. We're just... We are social constructs, walking social constructs, and we help to define and complete every stereotype that is made about us. That's literally our existence in 2014. So that's what that is, because, you know, it's unacceptable to believe that in America, white people are just as violent as everybody else. Let's talk about stand your ground, okay? If I live in Sanford, Florida, and a nice white gentleman comes, well, I won't even put nice in there. I'll just say a white gentleman comes in my yard, and he has a suit on, a briefcase, and some Dockers and Crocs. Well, I guess you can't wear Dockers with it. Well, he got on something that's nice, I guess, by American standards. and we get in an argument and I shoot him and I say that I was in fear of my life and I felt that I was in danger, most likely I'm going to jail. Okay? Because when we talk about stand your ground law, you know, this is a law that's in place where all you have to do is feel threatened for your life and you're justified in killing a person. However, if I were to shoot a white man in a suit and tie that was in my yard, even though if we did get in a fight, or even if he did try to kill me, it's very hard to believe that he would be a violent person because, as I said, socially it's not acceptable to believe that white people can be just as violent as we are. However, the tables are turned. You look at a George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, all right? There's this kid, he's in a hoodie, you know, he's using that urban vernacular and his diction isn't really as elevated as it should be. You know, George Zimmerman fears for his life. His life is in danger. So he's justified in killing this kid. And see, going back to that, this is why I don't like the idea of people going and trying to bring up black on black violence when we're speaking of white on black crime with a racial overtone. Because what you do is you help to endorse the idea that racism no longer exists. So when you say, oh, what about black on black crime? This is just an isolated incident. It makes other people, when responding to white on black crime with a racial overtone, say, hey, see, that black guy said it. You know, there's a bigger issue with black on black crime. And of course, it's easy to believe that because, once again, socially constructed, we are a violent group of people who just kill each other. So you know what? Let's not worry about what's going on with Michael Brown. Let's not worry about what's happening with Oscar Grant or Jordan Davis or dang, what's the guy's name that just got killed in New York? You know who I'm talking about. They got chokehold him. You know what? Let's not worry about that because in reality, these are isolated incidents. The real issue is these crazy black people that keep killing up each other. And I don't like when we do that because what you do is you do the media's job for them. You help to endorse that stereotype that black people are just overly violent and we shouldn't be concerned about when there's white on black crime with a racial overtone. And I specifically keep saying racial overtone because I don't want people to think that anytime a white person kills somebody black, it's because of racism. But there's a large percentage of issues where black people are being killed for waking up in their own skin. And that's another reason why so many are outraged when you do have a white on black crime with racial overtone or racial overtone. When we talk about black on black crime, black people aren't killing each other because they're black. It's not, oh, I woke up and you're black, you gotta go. All right. However, with many of these racial overtone killings, the victim is being killed, not because the aggressor just was like, I want to kill black people, but it's because the aggressor often has a complex that they have not been able to get over, or they have a perception of black people that has been built upon stereotypes that have been institutionalized and generalized and saturated in the media and in the mass society for years, where they have this fear for their lives. And even though they're honest, law-abiding citizens and they don't want to cause trouble because they've been told so many horrible things about us, it's easy for them to shoot us in the face. You know, when we just asked them, how do we get to 15th and K Street? You know, because they were fearful for their lives. I remember one time when I first started volunteering at this community center when I was in college, I had the wrong address. And this is before smartphones were really popping off. So, of course, I printed out my MapQuest paper and I'm walking and I'm all whatever. And this is a part of D.C. that was starting to slowly be gentrified. And I'm walking with my piece of paper and I think I'm at the address, but I'm not. The building, there was like 2 streets that had the same number. It didn't make any sense. So I'm at the building and I'm like, is this it? And when I turn around, I guess the woman who lives in the building, this nice white lady, she was coming up with her son on a stroller and she's just standing there shook because she's like, what is he doing? So when she realized I was leaving, she's like, oh. I'm like, do you know how to get to the so-and-so community center? I'm supposed to do volunteer work there. Yeah, it's on the other side. Yeah, and she was just so uncomfortable with me being there. And in her mind, she just knew that I was there to break in or come in there and rape her or something. And I'm like, what the hell? Okay, and at the time, look, I don't think I am the youngest looking person in the world, but at the time I was only 18. And when I was 18, I literally looked like I was 14 years old. So I was like, okay, wow. So, you know, that's my thing about when we're talking about black on black crime. You guys cannot continue to project and endorse this ideology because it continues to help perpetuate the idea that we are violent people. You know, violence is universal, unfortunately, and it's universal with every group of people. However, it's universally placed on us as far as black people because that's what society has begun to accept. And that's something I hope we can change. And I just don't like that we often do that because what's happening is, because it's easy to accept and believe that black people are so violent, it's hard for people to sympathize with a situation like Mike Brown. That's why you saw the St. Louis County Police try to release that robbery video. Let's make him look even more violent. Hey, he was robbing a store. And even with that, you know, I've never seen somebody rob a store, you know, unarmed, and the robbery was so bad that the cashier decided to try to go after the person. You know, usually when you get robbed, like, you take it, I'm out. Clearly, you should have just said shoplift. And even in that's the alleged video. We don't even know if that's him allegedly, but you know, it's like, let's paint and, you know, let's terrorize his character and paint him out to be some crazy villain. You know, that's the American way to do things. You know, Trayvon Martin, oh, he had weed in his system. It goes back to black people being violent. You know, why is it that when you look at the whole flower power movement in weed, it was, oh, weed, it gets you free. It's just so liberating. And Willie, you know, Willie Nelson, he smoked on the White House. That's the American thing to do, man. Let's get some pot. You know, but black people, we smoke. It's just dangerous. And it's funny that, you know, they tried to bring up that, you know, Michael Brown had weed in his system. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now, this crap is legal in Washington and Colorado. And now you have all these people profiting off of it and making a big joy out of it. However, because it's still not legal in the state of Missouri, you're going to use it as some type of thing to make him seem violent, even though weed is something that makes people relax. Now, I've never done it before. But clearly, based off scientific evidence, weed is not an aggressive stimulant. All right. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. So, black on black crime does not exist. There's black on black crime, there's white on white crime, Asian on Asian, Latino on Latino. Everybody does things to everybody because people often are going to commit some type of offense to somebody that's in their same racial background, or to someone that they already know who most likely is going to be in their same racial background. And on that note, I am through. And I'm glad you prayed my strength through this video because I made it. Amen. Subscribe, share your 2 cents, and, you know, with this series, there's going to be some things I'm going to talk about that are going to make some of my subscribers uncomfortable. Just know that it's coming from a place where I want to be informative, not aggressive, or not in a position where I'm trying to isolate certain groups of people and make certain groups of people feel as if they are the scum of the earth. That's not what I'm trying to do. Okay, I just want people to be educated, all right, because we just got to educate ourselves. We got to wake up, all right? The minute we can get to that position, that's when things get better. Because even going back to what I was saying, you know, because when people try to, you know, bring up black on black crime as a response to white on black crime with a racial overtone, it presents the idea that racism isn't a problem in America. And that's exactly why the Trayvon Martin case was lost by the prosecution, because the prosecution was afraid to bring up race. They didn't want to bring up race because it made the jury uncomfortable. And because they sat there and did not bring up race, that entire case just didn't make sense. And that's why George Zimmerman is chilling, lounging, okay? Lounging like LL remixed with Toto. Who do you love? Are you for sure? I'm out. Subscribe.